Hi there, I'm Em. Welcome to the Professionals Recovery Room. In our last episode, we talked about picking yourself back up after a layoff. Now let's talk about what comes next. Starting a new role, strong and staying steady without burning yourself out all over again, right? These are just a few tips to really help you stay successful and also set you up long term so that you're not burning out over time. If you're not working and you're going to be starting with a new company, you really want to start getting yourself on a schedule early because your rhythms might have been off. Maybe you were sleeping in, maybe you weren't being quite as active. So you really want to start building up that energy momentum before you start that new job. And for me, I tend to start setting my alarm earlier, using my normal workday rhythms, and then making sure that I get to bed at a reasonable hour. And I start to try to almost plan my day as if I was working. So like those extra things after 5, doing my hair, all of that stuff in the morning. So just whatever your normal schedule is for you, start doing that early to set yourself up so it's not this big shock to your system. And if you are working right now and you have a similar schedule, all of those things, so it's not that big of a change for you, what you can do is at least take some time off on the in between if you're able. I know some of us need to go straight from one to the other, but if you're able to take a week off in between, it might actually help you to just kind of reset yourself, as well get anything done needed that you maybe were putting off and couldn't get done while you were working. And that way you are refreshed and that you're ready to get started in your new job. And then once you start your new role, there's a couple of really important things I want to talk about. And the first one is observe first. So you obviously got hired for a reason. They've seen your resume, they've discussed your experience. So you really don't at this point have anything to prove, believe it or not. And this is coming from a hiring manager. I have had multiple new hires in my day, and I had a pretty large team that I was running as well. And I was a leader of leaders. So this is definitely coming from my own experience, not just general good advice. Observing first really helps by listening before you start jumping in to fix everything. And I can't tell you the number of times where I have a new employee and they're really eager and they're really excited, but they're not observing and they're not listening and they're not really engaging through their training program to really learn on their own, if you will. And they come to me with all of these things that they feel that can solve all of our problems within the first week that they're there. And when they bring up all these great ideas, these are things we have tried. These are things that maybe don't work with the system that we've implemented. It could be a whole number of things where to them it's this simple fix, but for us, it's either way more complex than that, or it's something that won't work for us for one reason or another. Maybe we already tried it, or maybe it was something that we've already moved from, right? But they don't know that, but they're taking up all of this time. We could be talking about more important things with their ideas because they have not taken the time to observe and learn. So that is my first recommendation is you don't have anything to prove in those first few weeks. Take that time to really soak it all in. Learn the culture, learn the business, learn some of the challenges, but also learn how things get done, how decisions happen, and maybe things that they've done in the past. Ask questions about things that they have actually tried, maybe things that worked, things that didn't. And just ask questions. I think that is one of the most important things you can do is ask questions without expectation or thinking that you know the answer. And that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is to understand the goals and build a clear strategy. So essentially, you can't do great work if you don't know what great looks like. So get really clear on the bigger picture, on the team goals, on the key priorities, and of course, make sure you know what success looks like at 30, 60, and 90 days. And sometimes the business actually does that format for you, but sometimes you need to be proactive and make sure you're doing it on your own to be successful. And the other thing I recommend doing that's been really helpful to me in my career is ask for historical papers, like in the past year, maybe the past 6 months. Recent, somewhat recent, and I should say recent lightly, because sometimes it could be beneficial to go back past that year, depending on, again, what the business strategy is. But for me, usually within the last year, 6 months is a great place to start. And you can actually start reviewing some of those papers, documents, maybe presentations, whatever they have or use in their strategy meetings to make decisions and to follow projects and initiatives. And that way you can really get up to speed again on the direction that things have gone in, maybe things that worked, didn't work, why they made the decisions that they made, and why we're here at the place that we're at today, so that you can be even more effective moving forward and you're not recreating the wheel. You're actually thinking of new, fresh ideas with the things that have already been done. And a great place to start to understand where to get all these things and where to make sure that you're aligned is just setting up consistent one on ones with your leader and key people. So you don't want to always depend on your direct leader for everything that you need. You want to be able to go out there and get it yourself, right? You want to be independent and make sure that you are engaging with those key people, understanding their perspectives, their strategies as this moves on, because someone may have a different experience of how an initiative went than someone else on a different team, right? It might look different. So you need to make sure you're getting all of those details set up together to be able to build your strategy. And when you're in those initial one-on-ones, it's really great to ask questions like, what does success look like? Or what are your top 3 priorities that you think are most important to the business? Or where do you think our biggest challenge is right now and why? These are really great open-ended questions to get them thinking as well and talking openly and just free flow of information that can be really important for you to understand where you go next. If you're not clarifying those goals consistently as you ramp up, you can really get lost in the momentum of the business depending on how fast that they're moving. And don't forget that even if you're clarifying goals in the very beginning when you're first starting, those goals may shift by the time you're fully ramped up in your next 2 or 3 months. So you want to consistently stay tied into those goals and into those forums where they continuously discuss those changing priorities and how the business needs to move forward. That way you can put a little bit more structure to the chaos of starting a new job, right? So the earlier you do this, the more you start to feel aligned and productive and on track. And there was actually research from Gallup and McKinsey that shows that people with clear goals and role clarity feel less stress and do better work. So this is a proven strategy that will hopefully help you as well. And then the last thing I want to talk about really quickly is setting up a sustainable productivity plan. You all know how I feel about burnout, and you know how prevalent burnout is right now. So it's essential to start with that in mind, that you don't want to get burned out in the first few months that you're starting a new job. So start off on the right foot and manage your energy from the very beginning. Don't burn out trying to impress everyone in those first few months because, like I said, your expectation of what you produce is very low usually in those first few months. So take that time to focus on your onboarding, on getting used to the role, and prioritize those items and not what you need to be doing a year from now, and not how you'll be performing, say, once you've already been ramped up, which would look totally different. And it would open up more of your brain space to focus on your day job because you already understand all that ramp up information, right? So we need to prioritize and do things in the right order. So start managing that energy and protect your recovery time. So, as we've mentioned in prior episodes, you need to be building that realistic work rhythm. Work with your energy. So, on those times when you're feeling like this is when you do your best work, throw in that difficult, challenging work during that time period, or things that you need to ramp up on and truly understand. Reading those papers, having those really deep fact finding conversations with your stakeholders and your peers, and take breaks. It may be that eventually you won't have a 12 to 1 lunch break, but because you're onboarding, maybe that's what you have and you're able to take it. So make sure you're taking those breaks when you're able and building some of that energy back. And then especially when you're onboarding, it's a great time to practice shutting down after your workday, because you don't usually have those overtime hours that happen when you're in your normal flow of work because you're still just onboarding. So really take advantage of when work is over, that you are recharging and recovering. Your brain is going through a lot, trying to learn a lot in a very short period of time. So give it that recovery time to be able to re-energize. And if you're able, take those short walks. Maybe even just a little stretching at your desk could be really helpful, but start implementing those early so that you're really taking care to make sure that you are not burning out and you're taking care of yourself. And then at the end of the day, it's a really cool thing if you just maybe try it once or twice, see if it works for you, but just do like a small reflection of what went well today. And then what do you want to repeat going forward? Maybe there was something that went really well, worked out for you, and like, okay, I want to implement this going forward. And then possibly even what boundary did I hold, especially if you are a person who has difficulty keeping your boundaries. And especially us overachievers are definitely like this. We want to work constantly and improve ourselves, right? But sometimes it's more important to make sure that we're holding that boundary, and that would actually be a huge achievement for us. So what boundary did you hold that day? And working on these things early is really showing how you're going to pace yourself, not just now, but how you're able to do it moving forward. Because it's not always going to look the same. And there's going to be times when you're going to be working longer days or maybe erratic hours or whatever that looks like. But if you're so used to taking the moments that you can to recharge and recover, it's going to come with you. And especially if you make sure that you're keeping some of those small boundaries, it's going to make it easier to do that moving forward. People are going to see that you're productive. They're going to see that you're producing, and they're going to know that, yes, she may need this 10-minute walk in the middle of the day, but she comes back and she kills it. Or maybe he goes and runs and gets a coffee, but when he comes back, he is completely re-energized and ready to go. So set an example too for others, because some people don't understand that we need these breaks to be at our best. Just remember that burnout doesn't do anybody any good. They have hired you because you are competent, because you bring value to their vision, and you don't have to prove yourself in that first couple of months when you're onboarding. It will come, and just make sure that you're ready for it and that you're going to be able to stay energized long-term, what I like to call sustainable productivity, and not just coming out of the gate like a ball of fire that's going to fizzle by the time it reaches the end of the month. So just to recap what we talked about, make sure you're preparing before you start the role, whether that means getting on that new schedule or taking a break between jobs if you're able, just to be able to recharge and get ready for the journey you're about to take on. Then observe first. Again, as a hiring manager, I can attest that this is so important, and it's wonderful when people take time to observe first before they start making recommendations on solutions. And then align your goals. Just make sure that you are aligned with your leader and with the team's strategic vision. And then protect your energy. And that's how you're going to stay strong for the long run and be super effective. And if you're interested, go ahead and take some time to reflect on how things are going for you each day and what you need to focus on most right now. In our next episode, we're going to be talking more about how to stay organized with competing priorities. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next time.